r/Askreddit by Reddit and chill. What's a story you always wanted to tell on this sub, but nobody ever asked the right question? Drank 2.5 glasses of ouzo and some beer. Then got thirsty and drank a lot. And I mean a lot of water. Next morning collapsed in the bathroom and ended up in a coma for 5 days. Turned out I got water poisoning. Could have died because of the booze and later because of the water, but survived both. Moral of the story: with heavy booze, use small glasses. One time my dad was extremely thirsty and saw a little bottle of water sitting on a table in a Greek restaurant. Since my dad was desperate, he grabbed the bottle and chugged the entire thing very quickly. And then proceeded to cough and nearly throw up on the floor. Turns out he just drank the equivalent of Greek moonshine. He almost threw up and he was pretty drunk. I felt so bad for him. Moral of the story: smell the liquid you're about to drink before you down it. My family was once rescued from a hurricane by a Colombian drug lord. We lived aboard a boat and our engine went out while Wilma was forming around us. We ended up having to do an emergency tack into a hurricane hole that was in his territory. He helped us fix our engine, gave us advice on our next trek so we could avoid waters that were pirate infested, and invited us to his house for dinner. I wish I knew his name because my family would have been in serious danger were it not for his kindness. Drug dealers are always nice and helpful as it keeps cops etc away from their patch more. Pull my finger. Proceeds to shot himself. I was once hanging out outside a bar in a bad part of town. My friend and I were just waiting for an Uber when a group of sketchy duckers came up and started talking to us aggressively. We were 90% sure we were going to get robbed. I was just kinda over it. I had a bad day already. I just started making a string of dong jokes in conversation until the guy said this guy's weird and left us alone. Something similar with my dad's friend, Tim, let's call him that. Tim and his brother were heading to the parking lot after dinner and this idiot comes running to them with a gun demanding money. Tim's reaction was to ignore the gunman. He just continued making casual conversation and his brother understood and played along. The gunman said something along the lines of weirdos and ran away. I guess if you show you're crazier than them then they'll leave you alone. I noticed that whenever I'd order Jimmy John's for delivery, the drivers were either really uptight when I'd answer the door, or seemed very uninterested and wouldn't look at me. This was surprising, because I try to be really nice to service industry people. I was doing a group order and wanted to make a note in the comments section to bring extra napkins when I finally pieced it all together. My account had an old comment still in the special instructions tab, saying do not make eye contact at the door. I must have made it with my friends when we were drunk as a joke and forgotten. That means the past dozen orders or so will have that attached to the order ticket without me knowing. I used to have draw your biggest fear on the box as my special Domino's request. One day an elderly fellow with a heavy accent came to the door and very apologetically said my fear is losing my daughter and I didn't know how to draw that. He got a big tip and I removed that off my order after that. I always knew my great grandfather as the guy who lost his eye at an accident with a firecracker. This Christmas I found out that it saved his life twice. Once, because he had tickets for the Titanic, which he then missed because of the accident, and the second time, when he was supposed to fight in World War I. He went to the office where he was supposed to sign up for it, told them that he was disabled, which they did not believe. So he took his glass eye out of the socket and placed it in front of the officers. So yeah, losing an eye isn't the worst that could happen. My uncle lost his eye and it got him in trouble with the law. After the accident he got a forestry job. He had to go to a remote part of northern Canada to assess tree density. This story happens in the early 1970s. He drives up to the middle of nowhere, grabs his pack and hikes out of the bush for a week. While he was away, the RCMP show up at my grandparents to find out where he was. His car was parked next to a dead body in the middle of nowhere. Turns out someone else murdered the guy and my uncle just happened to park next to the body, but because it was on his blind side he didn't notice the corpse when he parked. Also, the RCMP only found the body because they were investigating what they thought was an abandoned car. The cops weren't buying the story until my uncle pulled out his glass eye to prove it. Posted this before about how I accidentally pissed off the crows. Oh god, it's a long story. It started when these 4 boys around 10 or 11 would walk past my house every week to go swimming. And every week, 4 weeks in a row, outside my house the same kid got shat on by a massive crow. Obviously we found this really funny and didn't make the connection at the time he must have done something to piss the crow off. I was putting bird food out in my garden but I was getting loads of feral pigeons so I was trying to shoo them away, which this crazy crow must have taken offense to. Soon after I noticed that I was getting cawed at by crows all the time. No matter where I went there was angry crows cawing at me. That's when I googled crows and saw that they can hold grudges, recognize people, tell other crows about bad people. So I tried to make a peace offering by throwing food on my shed roof. My kitchen window, with the sink in front of it, overlooks the shed roof. After throwing food out I stood by the window doing the dishes. This must have also pissed this crow off. Later that day a crow started absolutely screeching and cawing. I went through to the kitchen to see what was going on when a huge bird shit landed on my window. In 20 years there has been no bird shit on that window because there is a big ledge above it. So this crow must have hung its butt over the ledge just to do that. Obviously after the shitting and screaming I wasn't going to give it any food that day. I did give it food the next day and it must have taken the hint because it never shat on my windows or woke me up by screaming again. However, for about a year and a half, every crow for a mile radius around my house would angrily caw at me. Don't piss off the crows. Crows can remember human faces associated with stressful situations for up to 5 years and they'll also warn their friends. thickconversation.com link. The most unexpected people I ever met under the least exciting circumstances. I was a janitor at a truck stop big rig mechanic place. They worked on semi-trucks, RVs, tour buses, whatever. Sometimes a mechanic was working late and there'd be some Joe Blow trucker or Midwestern family waiting to get their vehicle back. So one night I'm bebopping around, gathering trash or whatever, and turn the corner to see 6 Japanese men, all wearing black leather, studs, eyeliner, spiky hair and all. The MOest guys I've ever seen. Of course I'm like, what the duck? But we got to talking, and I find out they're a Japanese heavy metal band called Diren Grey. Never heard of them. They were on tour and heading to Seattle when they had some issues with their bus while passing through my state, Idaho. They were nice as hell and encouraged me to look them up. And I wished them a good tour and went about my work. One of my favorite memories. Totally bananas. Sweet boys. My favorite is meeting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at an airport in I think Texas. My dad, brother and myself took our catamaran, small 2-hulled sailboat kind of thing, out at one of the Florida Keys. We needed to cross under the 7-mile bridge to get to the beach where the rest of the family was at. We had the clearance according to my dad, but apparently the tide was in. Our mast barely clipped the side of the bridge and started to capsize, but it kind of settled and just sat there. We decided the best thing to do was to just flip it the rest of the way and go with the current. We all had great life jackets and were solid swimmers, so we weren't worried drowning. While we were trying to flip the catamaran back over, it can be done. A Coast Guard cutter pulled up and got my brother and I on board. They tied the rope from the mast to the back of the boat and got it up eventually with the help of my dad. They wrote my dad a ticket and we continued to the beach. My dad made us swear not to tell my mom. Well, that lasted about an hour because people had been fishing off of the old bridge and came to tell us at the beach that there were sharks circling us the entire time. I'm really glad I didn't know that at the time. My buddy and I went to the gym one night. It was a 24-hour gym and we're introverts, so we liked going late at night when it wasn't busy. Nobody else was there that night. It was around 1 AM on a weekday. I finished my workout first and hit the showers. I'm washing up in my little shower stall and minding my own business. Then all of a sudden, I feel cold water running down my back and my ass. That some beach buddy of mine filled up a bucket of freezing cold water, snuck up behind the stall with his eyes closed, obviously does not want to accidentally see my dong or ass, put it over the stall door and poured it. I screamed in terror because it was so ducking cold and he was laughing his ass off. I decided to get him back. I was gonna flash my dong at him. I finish my shower, and I overhear footsteps coming to the change room. The change area and shower area were separated by a thin wall. I decided this was the moment. I run to the change area in my towel, whip it out and yell, "Wanna see my penis?" It wasn't my buddy. It was some random guy who showed up for a late night workout. I was mortified. I showed this dude my dong. My buddy was outside the locker room dying. We never saw that guy at that gym again. For good reason. TLDR. My buddy poured cold water down my naked ass. I decided to flash him my dong as payback. Flashed someone else by accident. See, I tried going to the gym super early like 0200 to avoid people because I was super self-conscious and in pretty poor shape. Still am. And right as I'm pathetically attempting to do a really easy workout on this weird walking machine thing, these two smoking hot chicks walk in laughing and looking at me. They were clearly laughing at something else and just happened to both look at me at the same time. Boo, that was the last time I went to a gym. I once got locked in the laundry room at my apartment complex and had to call the cops to get me out. Expanding on this and tagging u/rockacocolaws. u/hex on that and u/kindebvious so they see this too. I went in to do laundry. Tried to leave and couldn't get out. I tried to get out through the windows but they were painted shut. I tried to slip someone my key under the door and they couldn't get it open. So I called the police. They sent two guys that looked like they'd just finished infiltrating a high school to bust a drug dealer. It was probably their first day out on the street. They had years of preparation and months of training. They're geared up. They have their guns. They have their tough guy attitude. They are ready to catch criminals and thwart robberies, and in comes a call from dispatch. KCHHH, yeah. We've got a dumbass trapped in a laundry room. So these two guys show up and their disappointment quickly changed to joyous laughter at my unintended misfortune. After similar attempts to get me out, I saw one of them talking into his radio and 2 minutes later a third officer shows up. This guy looked like a 15-year vet on the force. He's built like a brick wall. He's seen everything in his decade and a half in blue and he is not laughing. And the only words Officer Brickwall says to me the entire time are as he's approaching the door. "We'll get you out but I don't want to break anything." So he sticks the claws between the door and the frame, pulls it once, pulls it twice, and presses the door open. Turns out a big screw from door's faceplate got stuck in the strike plate and wedged itself in the door frame. I had to look up parts of a doorknob to get the right terminology. Before I could even thank Officer Brickwall or beg him to let me take a selfie with the claws of life, he stomped back to his car and drove off. After an hour in the laundry room, I was free. Edit. Epilogue. While I was stuck in the laundry room, I was waiting for a friend to show up. We were going to smoke weed, eat pizza and watch Monday Night Football. I had to call my friend and assure him that the cops were there to help me and to pick up the pizza since I was unable to do so. My door had been left unlocked and he dropped off the bong and pizza just in time to watch me be set free. I worked at a hospital as a doctor's assistant in the orthopedics department. This one time there was a patient who stole a bunch of sheep and when he was cornered by the police he grabbed one and jumped off of a bridge. When asked why he said, "I thought sheep are soft like clouds so nothing will happen to me." Needless to say he broke every single bone in his body. Poor sheep. TLDR. Not a story but one time I went to sleep drunk. Just after chugging 3 beers. Woke up with a boner while peeing straight up in the air. Yeah. It rained down straight on my face. Sir, I'm afraid there's no possible question this would answer to. I was hanging out at the river with my friends drinking a Capri Sun when I was 8 and a grown man we didn't know pointed at me and yelled, "Aye. That kid drinking Capri Sun." My friends started laughing and one of his friends yelled, "Is it good?" To this day, I can't drink Capri Sun around those friends without someone saying, "Aye. That kid drinking Capri Sun." I can't see pudding without thinking of a driver's ed teacher my brother had. They were out doing behind the wheel training in some neighborhood near the school. This guy sidles up to the road and the teacher says to my brother, "That's only pudding," before yelling out the window, "Heey. Pudding." When I was young, I had a job and one of the tasks was to drain carboys of water. The water collected from the AC drainage. The nearest drain to dispose of it was in the men's room. So once every 2 weeks I would drain these carboys. The bathroom was small. One urinal. One stall, one sink. I was pouring the carboy out in the sink when the big boss came in and goes right to the urinal. Since it was a small bathroom, I thought I'd give him space and started to tip a bottle back up so I could get out of his way. Boss man has an accent I wasn't very familiar with. He says no. Don't stop. I thought it was kind of strange, but maybe he has a hard time going and liked the sound of water pouring? Turns out he meant to say no. Don't. Stop. Why? Because the plumbing was backing up. The urinal pulled Old Faithful and geysered a sweet combo of toilet water and urine all over him. He looked like he got an answer wrong on a Nickelodeon game show. It was a good time. Ducking like and subscribe.